creative industries have emerged as one of the leading sectors in the economy.
Starting up a small recording studio in my dad's garage is all it took.
My story was more like experimenting with a variety of flavors, baking cupcakes, brownies, donuts.
Breakthroughs are usually when you find a new way to do something.
Oh well, me and my sister set up a fashion label because we just couldn't find what we wanted in shops.
Breaking rules and great stories start with how you dare to do things differently.
So, how do you start and sustain a business?
All these and more as Africa's Global Bank, UBA, presents Mind Your Own Business, a radio program designed to initialize, educate, and motivate young entrepreneurs emerging as strong players in the local and global economy. Stay tuned for Mind Your Own Business, proudly brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank.
This is Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank.
Good morning, you're listening to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. Thank you for joining us this morning. And of course, on Mind Your Own Business, we give you the tools you need to be an entrepreneur in Africa's largest economy, Nigeria. And on our show today, we'll be focusing on choosing the right business to get into. And joining us for that conversation is Audu Maikori. You can call him a serial entrepreneur. He's invested in entertainment, restaurant, and IT. But of course, he did start off as a lawyer, and he'll be telling us his story. Audu, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
all
a lot
right, so let's
me.
first of all get some background. Like I did say, we
Yeah.
could say you're a serial entrepreneur, right? But you're still young. So tell us, where did this entrepreneurial thing start for you?
Well, to be honest, I think it started right from secondary, from university. I started my company, then wasn't a company, as Chocolate City. But even as a Jambai, the first thing that I was doing was creating posters for shows for people, because I used to paint and I used to draw quite well. I still think I do when I find the time. And so I got involved in creating promotional items and posters for events during shows.
Like you go to school in Lagos? Or
University of Jos, the great
right.
University of Jos.
So you're from the north, right?
I'm from Kaduna State.
Okay.
Born but not bred.
Gotcha.
In Kaduna.
Gotcha.
So I started off that way, and I think the first entrepreneurial thing I did in that field was that an actor, Zach Orji, at that time had a movie he was trying to promote in school, and he asked around, and people said, "Oh, ask this guy. His name is Audu. He does this," and that's how I kind of got involved, and then we became friends, and I helped to promote his movie then in school, and then later on, Chocolate City started really as a nightclub. As a rave in university, and me and a couple of guys got together and decided that we wanted to make some money and also create some fun in school. So we had a DJ, and we bring DJs from around the country to come and play. We collect a gate fee, sell drinks. So that's really how it started for me.
Right. Okay, but of course you did study law, right? So
Yes.
was law like a sideshow for you? But tell me how that has worked out.
No, ever since I was 4, I knew I was going to be a lawyer. I come from a family of lawyers, and law is in my blood. So I'll always be a lawyer. That never changes. But the thing about law is that it opens you up to many sectors that hitherto you may not have been part of, and is probably one of the most dynamic careers you can choose, because you can work in any field, literally. Right. So the law thing has always been part of what I do, and no doubt even with Chocolate City, that played an integral role in helping us shape the structure and how we're going to run our operations. So it's part and parcel of me.
Right. On this show, we like to really inspire entrepreneurs. So tell us, what's your story?
Well, my story, the long and short of it is, you can't keep blaming somebody or putting your destiny in people's hands. You need to take control of your situation. And I find that enterprise can be a very strong tool for changing things. And if you're not happy with the status quo, change it. And we've seen so many life-changing entrepreneurs who have come up with great things that have changed the way we live. Indeed, what we're using now to communicate with the crowd is somebody's entrepreneurial endeavor. And that is why we have radio stations as powerful as the platform that we're using right now, and shows like this. So the idea is that you have a situation. I'm driven by the need to change things and take control of my own environment, and not wait for somebody to dictate how things will go for me.
All right, spoken as a true entrepreneur. Actually, the question I really wanted to ask was, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? What's your message to those who are aspiring to do business in Nigeria?
I think you need to be clear about what you want to do, and sometimes it's not easy to be clear. because sometimes you may find yourself with different talents. You may have different natural inclinations, and you may find it difficult to say, look, I want to do this instead of that. But I find that the thing that comes most naturally to you is the best way to go. The thing that most people say about you, I mean, if you hear it enough, then you should begin to pay attention to it. It's a sign.
Right.
Because it means that it comes naturally. And if you're not aware of it, then that means it's really, really natural. Right. It's part of you. So if they say, this guy, you talk a lot, then maybe you should think about going to radio. Maybe you should think about writing speeches for people. Maybe you should be in politics. And if people say that, you're very good at analyzing issues, then, you need to go into data collection or management.
So what did people say about you that got you into entertainment? Of course, I think the next thing was the restaurant, the IT thing. But so what exactly do people say?
Well, let's just say that it's a law that led me to entertainment in a means, in a way, because entertainment had been nudging, but I never noticed. I grew up in a family where music was a big part of our culture, and my dad got us a music teacher when I was 11. And we had music lessons. So I had basic piano lessons. I know how to play the piano. I know how to sing, although I had a terrible voice. So it was clear that
we can test that later.
Let's not. So it was clear that there was that. So it was just natural that when I thought about the creative side of me and then the professional side of me, I realized I needed to go to school to learn the profession, but the creativity was natural. So there's no need to go to school to nurture that. So what you find is also that I started representing talented people or creative people for free because they couldn't afford to pay for a proper lawyer. But I was just interested in the fact that some people didn't understand the contractual obligations. Some people, one of the first clients I handled had a contract that had no termination date. So I came in to help him get out of that contract and help to begin to guide him and show him what could be using his talent. So I'll just say that it kind of happened, it had been side by side, but it was time now to move from complaining about what was wrong and trying to set up something that could change those wrongs.
You've been in this entertainment field for a bit. Your thoughts about the future of it? Everyone is talking about Nigeria being the big thing in Africa, taking over Africa really. When you're talking movies, you're talking music. Your thoughts about the future? Because at the end of the day, someone has told me that the success of Nigeria's entertainment in particular has really been success of people who just have that will and drive to get things done. The support structure is not there. So without that support structure, can it still be great in your view?
Well, already it's great without the structure. I think it can only get greater. And some of us have been working quite hard over the past years to ensure that there's structures. And that's why you find that some of us are very serious about going to court to protect our rights. Some of us are very serious about being part of movements that help to shape the industry. Being part of bodies like the COSON or talking with bodies that have to do with the Copyright Commission. I was recently named the chairman chairman of the Nigerian Music Monitoring Group. And what we're trying to do is set standards for the industry and begin to lobby the legislature for proper laws that will help to guide the industry. So I think that the future is bright. Okay,
Audu, we need to take a break right now, but we always like to play music. Give us something that you want. I imagine it will be a Nigerian act or something.
Yes, and it has to be my guy Luz Kanon with his brand new single called I Want Timmy.
All right, I'm sure we can bring that to you. Of course, we will come back after this break and continue our conversation with Audu Maikori. We'll be back in a moment.
Coming up on Mind Your Own Business.
A business plan is not a sacrosanct document that is untamperable, so to speak. You have to keep revising and reviewing as things change.
I just smile at your chick and she gon' pimp Professor Xavier. Right now it's me and her in the whip. You can't ride with us cause the car's full. My ex drew in her face, you look retarded, baby, you mad, boo. Ooh, when we step in the club, it's a rap with the bottle apocalypse. She be acting clumsy with that, she can tell by the way that she dropping it. Steady stunning niggas at the bar cause we already know they ain't poppin' shit. I'm Superman in this bitch, this is Metropolis. Taking shots to the head, but we ain't bought them selfies. We look like young and wealthy. Y'all niggas looking like help me. Pulled up to to the club. Let's go.
You're listening to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA.
Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. Still with us today is Audu Maikori, serial entrepreneur. He's invested in entertainment, restaurant, IT, and of course, he is a lawyer by training. Audu, thank you so much for sticking around today. So you've given us some insight into how you can get a feel of what you want to do as an entrepreneur. But when you get beyond that point, how do you start? From your experience, what are the next critical steps, if you like?
The way businesses start have changed over the years. When we started, there's really nobody you would go to and say, so how do I start this? But now there's so many resources and so many people who have ventured into a variety of things, and the internet has actually opened up a window of information that prior to this was totally unavailable, especially in this part of the world. So you find out there's a lot you can read up on about any business whatsoever you want to go into.
So the internet is a real resource today.
It is a huge resource. You want to be mentored, you can be mentored online. You see real life tweets from people talking about their experiences. You see videos, you see books, publications, articles, which kind of give you perspective. However, the truth is that when you're doing it in practice, it doesn't sound as easy as people say it is. So I think, first of all, before you launch into business, you must do your research. You always hear business plan. Business plans are quite important, and they don't have to be as intricate as people say it has to be. But
what do you think are the key features? What you talked about research, for instance. Is that the real thing? Trying to understand the market before you get into it. What exactly is that key? Yeah, I mean,
of course, it depends on what discipline you're trying to, what area of business you're trying to go into. But I'll say that primarily you need to have, what is your objective? I always say that the entrepreneur's role in the society is to solve problems. So if you have a solution to your problem and you know how to put it into some kind of form and package and sell it, then you're in business. But remember too that once the problem has been solved, you have to think about the next problem to solve. So you think that that's why car manufacturers make a car, make it all nice, and then they now start selling spare parts. So there's another business in maintaining the vehicle aside from selling the vehicle, and making sure that the parts are serviced. So there's a whole value chain that's produced. So the first thing is that you need to find what the problem is. That's natural. So there's no electricity in Lagos. So do you want to go into distribution of power? And there are lots of companies now servicing many estates that kind of charge using a diesel generator rather, but charging using a card, where people kind of pay like a recharge card, and they have, so you're meeting a need. Now the next question is that what if now PHCN ramps up to 40,000 megawatts? There'll be less demand for that type of service, but it doesn't mean that you can't.
So you have to think about all the scenarios.
You have to.
The major critical scenarios.
You have to project. You have to look at the problem, look at the solution, look at how, if that solution is brought about, does it now dissolve the original value proposition you brought, and what other things can happen off of that. Of course, you need to understand what your main objective is, what you're trying to achieve, what is your primary goal. What are your projections? How much are you going to spend? How much do you need to spend to get to profit? How long will you operate without making money? Because typically businesses will run 3 to 5 years before they break even. Typically, some businesses are outliers. They may bridge that gap. Some don't make money for 10 years. So you need to be able to keep running that business, and you have to keep thinking and reinventing the business. And that's why I said a business plan is not a sacrosanct document that is untamperable, so to speak. You have to keep revising and reviewing as things change. I'd also advise that you get business mentors, people who can give you perspective, especially when it comes to different areas: financial operations, human capital development, day-to-day administration, board, corporate governance, And I also recommend that you also get partners. I know that people are very wary of partnerships, but the truth is that the biggest businesses are formed by partners. It's not a one-man business. Very few of them lasts.
Right.
And because once the person passes, then that's the end of the business. So if your objective is to grow a business that will outlive you, then you need to bring in partners, and you must learn to trust people.
Right.
And the only way to guide against somebody cheating you is not doing any business whatsoever.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's take this to an element that, of course, you bring to the table here. Earlier, I introduced you as a serial entrepreneur, and I imagine there's quite a few people out there that have that itch, that they feel, okay, I've done this business, but I think I can do more. I have more capacity.
Yeah.
So how do you make that decision to move from one business and then begin to set up another? And before you answer that, I recall reading about the Google story, and one of the things that they emphasize is that they try to do one thing extremely well, and of course that was the basis of everything, so they were the best in search. So it may take a while to get to that point where you think you are the best at one thing, and you invest all that energy into one, but on the flip side you feel like you can do so many other things. So how do you make that move from one business to the next?
I think it's a person to person and a business decision. Some people can multitask, some people can't. Most people can't.
So you need to know yourself.
You need to know yourself. But I think also that, there's argument for jack of all trades, and then there's the argument for being professional. And I think, in my view, you need to make a call, but you must be known for at least one thing.
Gotcha.
I keep telling people that you must be a star in one particular thing. And then once you've mastered it, 10,000 hours or 10 years, then you begin to move to the other things.
All right. We'll, of course, get more perspective from you. Before going to the break, of course, this is a radio station and we'd like you to make a music selection. So what do you like?
Oh, it has to be music from my label, of course.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but I'd like to hear Cabo by Coca.
After the break, we'll continue our conversation with Audu Maikori, a serial entrepreneur. We'll be back in a moment.
Coming up on Mind Your Own Business.
You win by being stubborn and staying on it. People want it to be easy, but if it was easy, then everybody would be a business owner. It is tough.
Your own, I get in my own. I never let your own, the enter my eyes. Oh, no, but call him Mole Cabo, but they're a Ferrari Cabo. You just came back, push a touchdown, more come from Cabo. It's a salary top champagne, no be my money, I can't complain. Cabo, 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 Cabo. But call him Mole Cabo, but they're a Ferrari Cabo. You just came back, push a touchdown, more come from Cabo. It's a salary top champagne, no be my money, I can't complain. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Oh, money, money, la duke. Oh, money, money, la duke. Oh, money, la duke. Oh, money, la duke. I'm beginnings, soon I'll be winning. I fit achieve anything so long as I'm willing. Humble beginnings, soon I'll be winning. I fit achieve anything so long as I'm willing. But call him Mole Cabo, but they're a Ferrari Cabo. You just came back, push a touchdown, more come from Cabo. It's a salary top champagne, no be my money, I can't complain. Cabo, 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 Cabo.
Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. Audu Maikori is still with us and he's giving us his perspective as an entrepreneur. Audu, let's talk about the Nigerian landscape for an entrepreneur. Everyone talks about it being tough. What's your perspective?
It is tough, but if you can make it out here, you can make it anywhere. But I think that we've always had an innate drive to just do things for ourselves, maybe driven more from the prestige factor than even any other factor, which is everybody wants to be his own boss. Everybody wants to control himself. And if you look at the trend with millennials, they all want to control what they do. So you find that there are many 19-year-old CEOs now doing their own things and doing fantastically well. So I think it's a great space to be in, and I think that's the major distinguishing factor between Nigerians and other Africans is that Nigerians have a natural self-drive.
I hear that all the time. Everyone says that. Okay, but let's talk about whether or not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Your take on that is something I ask guests sometimes. Do you think entrepreneurs are made? Do you think they're born? What's your perspective on that?
I think that they can be made and they can be born. I don't think that they're absolutes. Most times, the people that succeed the most are the people who are inspired to become entrepreneurial. So take the case of somebody who used to work somewhere and lost his job and needs to feed his family. You have to think fast. You have to think quick. You need to create. You have to solve that problem.
Right.
And for others, it's just innate. Is that naturally they just gravitate towards that. And I think I'm one of those natural ones. Simply because I didn't. In all honesty, I didn't have to struggle for anything. I didn't lack anything. From law school, I got a job within 2 months, so it wasn't as if I had any issues. And my last paid job was very lucrative, so I didn't have to. But I just felt the need to do something a bit more and control my circumstances. So I think that it needs to be a call you make. And sometimes when they say somebody's an entrepreneur, people think that you need to start something. It doesn't mean that. It actually means that you bring...
Tell us about that. So are you saying that one can be an entrepreneur working for someone else?
Of course. Yeah. Of course. People think that, you see, what distinguishes an entrepreneur from another person who's a worker is that he uses his resources, material, financial, physical, or otherwise, to add value to a company. That's what it really means. So you can work in a company and be entrepreneurial by introducing new stuff and using your resources to drive it. Right. And in exchange, you can also get a piece of equity for doing that. So, and equity really is part of the shall I say the reward for entrepreneurship. Right. So if I'm bringing a new factor to Mobile, Nigeria tomorrow, and or let's say UBA for the purpose of this context. Right. But let's say I'm doing something in UBA and UBA says, wow, you brought $8 million to our company. We'll make you a shareholder. I'm an entrepreneur. I just use my resources in other ways. So I think that it needs to be clear that we don't always have to start something, but we can be part of something.
Right. Because I think some people feel the itch that, I want to own part of this business, but I think you've brought a very interesting perspective to that.
I think even the truth is that in secondary school, when you studied economics, they would say an entrepreneur is somebody who puts his money and invests in something. So that thing was drummed in our heads. Right. But I've been part of a lot of international entrepreneurial experiences. When I went to in 2007 or so, I won some global thing for music enterprise with the British Council. Okay, and the following year, I got to become a judge on one of the UK editions. So I was judging the UK companies in music, and half of them were not people that started businesses. Half of them were actually, so we had to redefine, we had to ask ourselves, what is an entrepreneur? And they said, this person came to this business, changed it, did this, did that, he's an entrepreneur. So
that's what you're looking
So I think that's quite key. We should understand.
All right, let's begin to round this up. Your tips to Nigerian entrepreneurs today, what do you say to them? What's your message? It's a tough environment, no doubt. How do you win in this environment?
You win by being stubborn and staying on it. People want it to be easy, but if it was easy, then everybody would be a business owner. It is tough. And I think so many people want get-rich-quick schemes. It doesn't work. If you get rich quick, you get poor quick as well. But if you're able to build steadily over the years, then what happens is you become more stabilized and you're able to now add more value. Because there's nothing as dangerous as quick growth, because you're not able to grow organically and be able to. So you find out that if you started a business with 200,000 naira, next thing you make 50 million naira, you may not be able to manage that growth. But if you build your company over 3, 4, 5 years, then you have gained the experience that you need to stabilize and keep growing. The other point I also make is that you need to invest in people. People are too selfish. They think only about themselves, and they think about reinvesting only in themselves.
What's the payback for investing in people, in your view?
You have a stronger company, and even if they go, they're going to add value somewhere else. You know, I think
So
people
you
are just scared of
improve
Yeah,
society
saying I spent so
somehow.
much money on training him and he's leaving me. But it's a cycle. That's life. People move on. But as they're moving, it opens doors for other people to come. It's a cycle.
All right, very interesting perspective to end it there. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Audu Maikori, giving us a very interesting perspective on the life of an entrepreneur in Nigeria. Hopefully, we've learned a thing or two about what it takes to be an entrepreneur in this market. That's where we leave it on Mind Your Own Business for this week. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with a new guest, a new program, and more insight into being an entrepreneur in Nigeria. Thank you for listening.
Today's business tips from Audu Maikori is business growth and stability. And also remember to invest in people. For inquiries on Mind Your Own Business, please contact UBA Customer Fulfillment Center by calling these numbers 01-280-8822, 01-631-9822, and 0700-2255-822, Facebook.com/UBA Group, Twitter.com/UBA Group, live chat www.ubagroup.com, and you can also email cfc@ubagroup.com. Mind Your Own Business is brought to you by UBA, Africa's global bank. Creative industries have emerged as one of the leading sectors in the economy. Breaking rules and great stories start with how you get to do things differently. All these and more on Mind Your Own Business, a radio program designed to initialize, educate, and motivate young players emerging in the economy. Stay tuned every Monday at 8 a.m. on The Beat 99.9 FM for Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA.